Welcome to this CMC session on TikTok and YouTube and the opportunities and challenges for these platforms for learning. I'm Andy Williams.
And I'm Jo Redfern. And educators on TikTok and YouTube have taught us a valuable lesson that learning should be fun. One behaviour that's remained after the disruption to education that was caused during the pandemic is this appetite amongst families to supplement and add to children's education using platforms like TikTok and YouTube, whether that's through how-to videos, life hacks, tutorials, or just fun fact clips. Both platforms have come into their own as platforms that can make learning engaging and that sticks.
Yes, and we're delighted to welcome Sam Schultz from The SciShow, Tom Lee from Kids Knows Best, Molly Redmond, Senior Account Director at Baton Hall, and Kit Brown, presenter, teacher, and TikToker. So join us in our TikTok and YouTube The Future of Education session as we talk to a panel of leading experts.
We're delighted to have Molly Redmond joining us for this session. Molly, say hello and tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Molly. I work for Baton Hall, who are a social media specialist agency. In my job, and I'm an account director, so I help oversee a lot of our global clients. But previously, I have also worked in education as well, working for Pearson Education.
Amazing. So you've seen from both sides the power of platforms working at an agency, but also the power of particularly TikTok in this case for educating. So why is TikTok becoming such a popular platform for learning?
I think learning is a very visual experience for a lot of people, right? I think when I think back to my education, I remember BBC Bitesize being our most commonly used kind of platform. And it was full of games, very bright visuals, the kind of characters and a lot of that kind of like storytelling. And I think TikTok and other platforms like YouTube as well just lend really well for this, right? It's a creative platform. I think TikTok also has a very great discovery algorithm. It's very good at kind of starting to understand who you are as a person, the things that you might be interested in, the things in your daily lives. I'm a very avid TikTok user myself, and very quickly after I started using it, kind of realized the things that I was interested in, the job that I did and stuff like that. So I often get TikToks that are very tailored to my interests and my job. And so as learners, I think, as soon as you start feeding the algorithm with those kind of things, you're going to get served more and more relevant things for your education, which I think is really interesting. It just allows young people such access to such a wealth of really great content and a variety of content as well. I think that's really important in education, is allowing young people to figure out what their learning style is. And, for some people, the traditional classroom approach doesn't work for everyone. It doesn't work for everyone. And finding different things like YouTube videos and TikTok educators has been a lifesaver for a lot of people's education, because it gives them a different way of consuming educational content.
It's interesting what you've said in terms of making that content sticky. And as much as actually the learning content needs to be interesting and sticky in and of itself, actually, it can be who's delivering that. A TikToker, like you say, that already has a fan base, if they're the one that is almost imparting that information, you would assume that actually it's going to be more sticky for kids because they have a resonance with that person.
Absolutely right. I mean, again, in an ideal world, everyone and their teachers will get on really well and they'll have a great working relationship, but that's not always the case. Sometimes a teacher's education style might not work for individual students, and one student might resonate a lot more with someone who might be more similar to them or might have a different style of teaching. And so they're able to find these other educators online, whether that be YouTube, TikTok, or kind of other similar platforms. I think it just really opens up the world for learners, which I think is really exciting, finding different teaching styles, finding different ways of understanding things.
Who's your favourite creator on TikTok, or what's your favourite piece of learning content that you've seen on there and or YouTube?
So I've got a couple. One is on TikTok. There's someone called Miss XL, and she creates a lot of stuff around Excel sheets, cheat sheets and stuff like that. And I think the way that she does it is very good at making quite a stuffy, boring subject really fun. She'll do kind of comedy skits with it and use trending audios. I think it's a really nice way of showing how you can take these topics and do it in a fun and creative way. Another element that I've really loved recently, seeing a lot more of, is like you say, beyond the kind of educational, classroom curriculum, how people are using educational content for other things. So not all young people or even adults might have had the same access to the same life education. And I think, there are content creators using their platform to be almost like adoptive parents. And I've seen people doing kind of educational content or tutorials around things like understanding tax, sex education, and even things like using a washing machine. Not everyone has had these things that maybe, a stable parent or their school might not have given them these education. And so seeing people doing content around that, I think it's been really inspiring, and it's that kind of nice community feel. I think someone specifically would be around Sophia Smith Gala. She creates a lot of educational content around world news, politics, and sex education that you might not necessarily get in schools. I think those are two that I like, but then also that general sphere of this kind of life education that we're seeing coming through.
I really like that. And I think it's really interesting because, again, we use the term education and we default to thinking it's maths and science, but actually there's much more that kids are taking from TikTok.
So, Tom, welcome to the podcast. And before we start, would you be able to just give a brief introduction to who you are, where you work, and kind of your perspective on this topic?
Yes, my name's Tom. I work for Kids Know Best. Been here for maybe 5 years-ish now. So I head up the youth trend spotting department. So we speak to kids in the UK and US every day on Zoom calls, and we talk about what kids care about, what their interests are, why they like whatever it is they like. Really sort of hearing it, real-time insights from kids. We want to be the voice of kids, and to do that, we listen. So lots of talk about social media and what they can learn from those platforms. So always fascinating to hear all the random and interesting and aspirational sort of content they consume, and how they might implement that into their daily lives.
That's amazing. So that sets us up perfectly for our first question, which is, why, in your opinion, do you think that TikTok and YouTube are such good platforms for learning and education?
Yeah, like TikTok, they're on a lot, and they're on the For You page. They get served content, and as we all know, the algorithm sort of serves up more of what you might engage with. So I hear lots of different genres of learning material, like life hacks, book talk's a big one, isn't it? And kids getting back into reading, but also like random, makeup tutorials, arts and crafts, cooking, baking, all these different things, how to edit videos, how to draw anime characters. Such a wide array of learning material. And just really exciting to hear them sort of go off and do it themselves.
And speaking to kids as you do every day, who are some of the creators or channels that they're bringing out, mentioning to you, and what kind of content are they learning from those creators that stuck with you whilst you've been speaking to them over the last few months?
It's an obvious one, but Mr. Beast, he's always the most mentioned YouTuber, always, every month still. He does do massive viral videos, but what kids talk about is his philanthropy. He does Team Trees, where he planted 20 million trees. And then he did Team Seas, which is where he raised $30 million to remove 30 million pounds worth of litter, marine litter from the oceans. And I've been on calls where there's a girl in Texas, 7-year-old girl, who was going to donate her fee from the call to that cause. So for them, Mr. Beast speaks to them in the right way, but also he's kind of with them on trying to help the planet for future generations. And I think kids are almost like burdened with climate change, especially where it's like, why is it all being put on us to sort of solve? It's more like, why aren't you doing something? And we'll be empowered by the knowledge of what we can implement. So I think Mr. Beast, they really resonate with him. Is quite genuine. He's got a lot of money, but he gives a lot away. Very sort of wholesome character, I guess. Has a lot of fun on his channel. Spends a lot of money on viral content, but gives a lot back. And I just think he's really engaged with the way he's just being proactive and trying to save the world, I guess.
There's lots of kind of benefits to kids in terms of learning skills and education, but do you think there are any kind of challenges that they face in terms of navigating some of this stuff?
Yeah, I think for me, it's sort of a growing concern where, especially teenagers, an impressionable age where, if you think you want to be in the know or the cool kid or whatever, the sort of those playground dynamics where before you might have said something that maybe was wrong and your mates would tell you to shut up or whatever. Now there's a pressure to like learn and be knowledgeable on all these subjects, and they're overexposed to news every day that they'll have seen, the news on the shootings in Texas and all this news that they're consuming, and climate change, inequality, injustice, where they're sort of consuming this all the time, and then there is that sort of danger that they'll be fed the wrong, or a sort of how best to say, a viewpoint that maybe isn't correct or is, I don't know, what's the word?
Not necessarily healthy either.
Not healthy, yeah. This danger of, this pressure to be in the know on everything, but not fact checking probably, wanting to quickly reshare something, quickly express a viewpoint on something they've learned, because that's the thing, that they love learning, but they could be learning the wrong thing and they don't really know, because why would they question a YouTuber with 20 million followers at 13? Are you really going to sort of look into the nuances of him or her, what their viewpoints are, and if they have an agenda, all these things that adults struggle with? Well, teens are, way more impressionable. And
it's interesting. I think you're right, and it's such a question of balance. But very often algorithms don't think about balance. They serve you what you've watched most of, and actually that can tip that balance perhaps in an unhealthy direction. I think it's a great point that you make. Thank you very much for joining us for this session, and we look forward to speaking to you even more soon.
Yeah, brilliant.
Thank you. So Sam, thanks very much for being a guest on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Could you, before we start, could you just give a brief introduction to yourself, your name, your perspective on the subject of educators within TikTok and YouTube?
Yeah, I'm Sam Schultz. I'm the producer of SciShow Kids, which is a kids educational YouTube channel. It's a spinoff of SciShow, which is a science-based channel, more for adults and like older kids. And that was hosted by Hank Green and a bunch of other people. And then in like 2015, we spun that off into a kids version. And that is under the umbrella of Complexly, the production company. We do SciShow and Crash Course and PBS Eons and lots of educational stuff.
Fantastic. So my first question to you was, why, in your opinion, do you think that YouTube and TikTok are such good platforms for learning and education? What makes them special?
I think for Complexly as a whole, it's all about accessibility. So it's great for us that we can make content for everybody in the world for free. So if a kid is like, why is the sky blue? They can search it and they can find SciShow, and they can know, and their parents can know that they're getting like the right answer about why the sky is blue from like a scientifically rigorous source. And it's not just SciShow. There's tons of great resources out there, even not for kids. Like, you want to fix your sink, you can learn how to fix your sink instantly, no matter who you are or where you are. You just need, at the very least, like an internet connection, and the whole world is available to you.
Do you think that link to a kid's curiosity and their ability to find that out for themselves, do you think that's a powerful ingredient in terms of why it's popular?
Yeah, I think it's kind of hand in hand. I think a lot of kids see it. We can see on our back end that it's played in a ton of classrooms, but then we can also see that it's not just played in classrooms. So I think it is like kids are introduced to our show and lots of other shows through classroom material, but it's engaging enough and different enough and doesn't feel like sitting in the classroom enough that they're still going to go look for it or ask for it on their own time. So I think they're kind of like intertwined with each other.
That's great. That's a fantastic answer. So then moving on to the other question that we wanted to ask, which was whether you had a favorite piece of learning content or a favorite creator of educational content on YouTube or TikTok.
Yeah, I think I don't make the show and edit the show. I just produce the show. So I feel like I'm allowed to say I love SciShow Kids. I think it is extremely special in the landscape of YouTube kids media, because there's a lot of weird stuff, and there's a lot of stuff that's made by like huge studios like Sesame Workshop, and that stuff's great. But we have a different approach to it, and I think it's a really special approach.
So one of the debates that comes up a lot, particularly in the area of the internet and kids, is the idea of whether the information is reliable or kind of well-researched and resourced. Do you kind of feel that's a kind of real responsibility for producers of kids' content on TikTok and YouTube?
Yeah, I think it's the thing that I take the most seriously, and that we all take the most seriously across all of our shows, because it's really easy in the field that we're in to, even when we're like watching our videos and proofing our videos, have a line of suggested videos next to it that are like, this is junk. There's so much junk that I think it's vitally important that we're not junk, and also let people know that we're not junk just by our reputation preceding us.
That's a really important navigator, I think, for kids to have a trustworthy source within on those platforms. I think that's a brilliant place to end the discussion. So thanks very much for all your answers. They've been great.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
We're delighted that Kit Brown has joined us too. Kit, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Kit Brown. I'm betterly known as Mr. Brown, I guess, across social media and in my classroom, of course. And I'm currently a Year 4 primary school teacher.
You're also a TikToker, and you are a creator on the platform. So tell us, in your view, both as a creator and a teacher, why do you think TikTok is becoming such a good and compelling platform for learning?
When I started TikTok, I saw a platform that only allowed you to film for a certain amount of time. And I saw that as fitting with, short educational videos that you could make snappy and engaging for kids. And I thought, what better way to provide children on a platform that they're using widely now? They're in a generation of social media, and they're on TikTok already, providing with that educational content that's only a minute long. I know you can do 3 minutes now, but at the start it was only a minute long. And, it's short, it's snappy, it's engaging. You can teach them concepts that, they might not understand in a classroom with a teacher stood in front of them. I think not every child learns sat at their desk with a teacher just feeding them the information stood at the front of the classroom. I feel like a lot of our children now are visual learners. They really engage with that visual aspect of teaching, and putting that on a platform that they can see right in front of their eyes as they're scrolling through their phone is gonna resonate with them, and they're going to be able to pick up on those concepts.
Do you find your Year 4s are on TikTok, even though in theory they're not supposed to be?
Yeah, well, they're not supposed to be with adult supervision. But when I started TikTok, a lot of them came up to me the next day and they said, "Oh my gosh, Mr. Brown, we saw you on TikTok last night." And I'm like, "Oh my goodness." But then that kind of made me think, well, if children in my class are seeing those videos, then on a wider scale, probably children from other schools are seeing it. And as my followers grew, I thought, well, children in other schools across the country are going to see this. And then, when my followers grew even further, I was like, well, now it's on kind of a global scale. So I thought, how can I use this platform to provide quality education to children? And I thought, short videos of me in the classroom delivering that content, in a fun, engaging way will help them understand concepts that, they might not understand sat at their desk in the classroom. And I think seeing that insight and having a teacher almost on your screen in front of you is a lot more comforting, because they're doing it at home in a safe environment. And, it's fun, it's engaging, and it's short, it's snappy. But I think it just provides them with an experience that they might not all take to in the classroom.
And do you think that it's a way of increasing connection with kids as well? Because I guess in a classroom, the relationship and the power dynamic is you're the teacher in position of power, they're children. And, it's almost, it's face to face, you're facing off. Now, that's the way classroom teaching is constructed. But actually, one of the things that social media does, and why TikTok and YouTube and influencers have become so popular, is it brings kids closer. And, it's this level of authenticity and connection. So do you think in a way that helps you as an educator?
Yes, absolutely. I would completely agree with you that in the classroom, it is very, your teacher's standing at the front of the classroom, delivering the content. You're sat behind your desk and you have to intake all of this information. I think there's something quite authentic, like you said, about using these social media platforms where they're tailor-made videos, and like I say, it's almost like you've got that teacher in front of you on your phone. And it's quite natural, you're scrolling through videos of all the things that you might be interested in, whether it's Fortnite, Roblox, all these different things. And then boom, you've got an educational video that relates to you. It's not seen as I'm sat in a classroom, I have to learn this, it's quite natural. It's all on your feed. And I think having that natural approach on a platform that they're used to and they're using for their own pleasure, they're not in a classroom being forced to learn or take this in. They're often on TikTok or YouTube for their own pleasure. It's going to make them engage with it more. They're going to want to go onto YouTube to learn about fractions. They want to go onto TikTok to learn about different punctuation in English, because it's delivered in a fun way. It's got to be short, snappy, and engaging, because otherwise no one's going to want to watch it or listen to it.
I think you're right. I think you've pulled out a couple of interesting points, because I think when they're in that mood that they're relaxed and they're wanting to be entertained, but something educational comes along, actually they are quite receptive to it. Like you said, it's not necessarily this, you're in a class and you're expected to be in a learning mood, whether you're tired or you're hungry or just not feeling it that day. So actually, I think it's an interesting point you made. So second question to you, who's your favorite creator that you found or piece of content that you've seen on TikTok?
So I recently, we had a new teacher join our teaching team. I teach in quite a large school. We have 3 teachers per year group. And she introduced me to a YouTube channel. It's called Anchor Education. And they provide loads of educational songs along with academic concepts. So there's a song for learning the continents of the world. There's a song for learning different punctuation. And we were teaching a unit on inverted commas and using speech within our writing, which is quite a tricky concept because there's loads of rules you have to follow and it's a lot for the children to remember. So we're thinking of ways that we could introduce this in a fun and engaging way. So we went onto their YouTube channel. They had a fantastic inverted commas song. And we thought, you know what, let's go for this. Let's do it. This is going to work. So I taught it in my lesson. I made a video of it, put it on TikTok, and it completely blew up. Because the children were engaged, they were understanding, the concepts that we were teaching. They were remembering each and every part of the lesson, and it was just delivered in that fun, engaging way. It wasn't just me at the front on a whiteboard saying, you need to put an inverted comma there, then you need a capital letter. We learnt the song, we learnt it off by heart. We learnt it with actions. It was inverted commas, talking. There was so many different actions. It's fantastic. To the point where they were just so engaged. And then in their writing and in lessons, subsequent lessons after that, and even now, and just in the half term gone, when they were writing adventure stories, you can see the children at their desk when they're including speech. And I've said, okay, you need to include some speech in your writing today. They're sat there at their desk with their pens going, okay, inverted commas, talking to, and they know exactly where to put the punctuation, where to put the inverted commas, the capital letters, all of those things that can be tricky to remember if you've just got a teacher telling you, just from learning that song. So we use a lot of anchor education songs, and there are loads of things that I've picked up from different TikTokers, different YouTubers that I think, do you know what, this is a brilliant, engaging way of getting the children hooked in to a concept that can be quite tricky to understand, and just provide them with a meaningful learning experience that they'll remember. Because I think that's the important part. It's all well and good providing a learning experience that looks fun and it looks crazy, it looks engaging, but are the children remembering that objective that you're teaching? And in the cases that, you know, in the lessons that I've provided with these different ideas from YouTubers and TikTokers, the key thing is they've all met the objective. They've all understood what teaching is, because I've delivered it in an engaging way. And I think that's one of the things that I found so amazing about TikTok and YouTube, that I've been able to pull things from different areas, take inspiration from other teachers, collaborate with other teachers, and just really take ideas and put them into my own practice that have kind of provided experiences for my children that I think are more meaningful and hopefully they'll remember.
Wow, that's amazing. That's such a compelling story, actually, in that it's helped you as an educator find ways to make education more sticky and stick with the kids, which is the goal of every teacher. So really interesting how TikTok and YouTube have helped you do that.
To write a character's direct speech, you'll need to listen very closely. Inverted commas, talking, a piece of punctuation. Inverted commas, talking, a piece of punctuation. Inverted commas, and then tell us who said it and how they said it, you plum.